If you've been ghosted, you know the pain and agony that makes you feel. The things that you wanted to say that you can't, and the complete shutdown and cut off of the relationship. What if there were some techniques that you could use to prevent yourself from being ghosted and ultimately being able to speak your truth? Let's talk about that in today's video. Welcome back, friends. Ashley Burgess here today. And if you haven't already, please subscribe to my channel because it makes us realize that we're doing something right. And also give us a like on this video if you like the content. So let's talk about this. Preventing ghosting. How do we do it? I know that being ghosted can be one of the most painful, agonizing experiences that anybody can possibly go through. The idea of not knowing what happened or what they think, or will you ever hear from them again? Can I ever speak my truth? Will I ever have another conversation with this person? All those things rifling through your brain just makes your head hurt. And it's sad and it's depressing. And when you've been ghosted, you talk to all your friends, you talk to anybody that'll listen to you about what can be done, but ultimately you're hoping that this person will respond back to you. So let's try to prevent that from happening. How do we do things so that we're not ghosted, but ultimately we're able to have the conversations that we need? And I've come up with a few ideas that actually do work, so let's talk about those now. Now, real quick, these are techniques that I offer my clients, and these are techniques that I personally use in my life as well. We all have people that we care about, and we all have difficult conversations that we sometimes have to have with them, and sometimes the people that we have to have these conversations with are not ready for it. They're not ready to deal with the responsibility of it. They're not willing or ready to deal with the emotion from it. They might not be able to even process the emotions that are coming from this conversation. And ultimately, that's a lot of why we get ghosted, because somebody just can't handle it. They can't handle the truth. They can't handle the responsibility. They can't handle it. And they ultimately want to cut off, to try to disengage, to try to avoid their pain or try to avoid responsibility. So let's jump in. The first thing I want to talk about is a lot of times when there is an issue and it's with somebody that you really care about. It could be a best friend, it could be a friend, it could be somebody you're in love with, it could be somebody you're dating, whatever it is. We really need to minimize what we say in the very beginning. And the reason why we want to minimize things is that we don't want to sit there and text all this stuff in a text message. We don't want to just be on a phone ranting and raving about what's going on. That's not going to get us anywhere. What's going to happen is that person's going to ultimately put up walls and boundaries and all kinds of things around them, even cutting us off completely because they don't want to deal with it. So we have to get some calmness, and we have to decide what we're actually going to talk about first. And usually we have to start with something small because we want to open the line of communication. We don't want to shut it down. We need to open it up with something that's palatable and that's easier for the other person to accept. The next thing I want you to think about is a lot of times we want to get the thought or the issue out of our mind and at them, whether it's text or call, as fast as we possibly can. Wrong approach completely. And it's hard to have that ability to calm ourselves down. It's hard to be able to maintain that self-awareness, and it's hard to be able to just sit with things. A lot of times it's hard for us to sit with uncomfortable emotions and feelings. But if you don't want to get ghosted, you're going to have to learn how to sit with something for a little while. Okay, so what we want to do is we want to really plan out the structure of this eventual conversation. And in the process, we want to aim for the direct discussion. Okay, and what I mean by that is this is not a discussion we're going to have by text. Okay, because texting is taken wrong half the time. This is not a discussion for a phone where we can't see the other person. This is a discussion that we want to have. Perfect scenario is face-to-face in the same room. That's the perfect situation because remember, you are right there with them. They are right there with you. This is a connection here. You're having this communication. It's a lot harder for them to try to disassociate or try to run or whatever when they're right there. And also the best thing too is that you're really putting it out there that you really care, or you wouldn't be having this discussion in the first place. Because remember, our digital age makes things easy, But when it comes to deep conversation, our digital age screws us every time because it gets in the way of our emotion. It gets in the way of seeing that we actually care and we're not just blaming this person or hating on this person. And also remember, the digital age allows people to cut people off very quickly when it's something that they don't want to feel. The next thing that I want you to think about is if something big has happened, and there's a lot of moving parts to it. Okay, that's usually what happens, right? Something's happened, you've caught somebody doing something, somebody did something wrong, whatever. Okay, I get it. There's a lot of examples that can go, and you can fit that example of probably what you're dealing with right here. I want you to write down your thoughts, organizing exactly how you feel and what you have to say. Let's say, for example, there's some evidence that's behind some of this stuff too. Writing that down, thinking about how that coordinates into what you want to convey to this person. And also remembering, people do things that are wrong. We all do things that are not right. We all do wrong things in our life. So it is about the pain that you're feeling, but we have to kind of try to set judgment aside. Because again, remember, when we're coming in judging somebody very hard, it's really hard for them to come out of that corner. And usually what happens if that's happening is they're going to come out fighting. And the last thing we want is somebody fighting when we're actually trying to have a real discussion. Because ultimately, if you really didn't care about the person, you wouldn't want to have this discussion anyway, right? You just let it go, move on, leave, possibly ghost them. This actually matters to you. So we need to be able to convey it in the fact that it matters and be able to do it in as little judgment as possible. The best thing about having this direct contact is that you're able to see them. You're able to see how their eyes look, how their focus is. Are they shaking? Are they not shaking? Are they making eye contact? Are they not? Are they sweating? Okay? Are they getting angry? Are they getting sad? Are they crying? Are there tears? This makes things a lot easier to really understand what we're dealing with. And so what we're ultimately doing to offset and to prevent the ghosting is when you have this big thing that you want to talk about, we don't want to bring it up on the phone. We don't want to bring it up on text. We want to set the time to meet them in person, and we want to hold true to that meeting. And so we want to do anything we can to actually get that meeting. And I know some of you might say, hey, well, I live in a different state or whatever, and that's impossible for me to have that direct connection. Okay, get on FaceTime. I mean, that's your next best situation, is to be able to see them and see them on camera. The best situation is directly sitting next to them. And so what you're aiming to do is to make it happen. You're making a time happen. You're having them come to your house, or they're coming to your office, or you're going to their house, or whatever you're doing. It needs to be in a place that they feel safe. Okay, that they're going to feel safe, that you're going to feel safe. A busy restaurant and those types of things are not the choice here. We need to be in a safe environment where we can communicate, where we can show emotions, that we don't have to hide our emotions. Because if you're going to expose something to this person that you know, or you're telling them something deep, or you're, basically, telling them something that they're not going to be aware of or not prepared for, you need to have them in a safe environment where they can communicate back with you and actually be genuinely honest. So ultimately what we're doing here is we're holding back our emotions as much as we possibly can. We're trying to calm ourselves. We're trying to self-soothe ourselves. We're also trying to organize our thoughts in the process. And then we're ultimately trying to get the meeting so that we can meet directly with them. Because it's a lot harder for somebody to actually know that you care, for you to process this, for you to tell them what's going on in a not judgmental way, and then you're face-to-face with them. There's a lot more connection, there's a lot more to lose here, and there's a lot less chance of somebody ghosting you. So ultimately, it may feel like the right thing to do is to text somebody or call them or tell them something directly. But remember, we need to hold back. If this relationship matters, we need to take the time, think through it, focus on what we really need to say, focus on what we really want out of the conversation, because we want to make sure that this isn't our last conversation. And we want to be able to build off this conversation more trust and connection with that other person. Because remember, some people, it's hard for them to process emotion. For some people, they're trying to cut that out. And so when you bring up deep things like this might scare them. They might want to run. And so ultimately, we're just trying to build the relationship to be at a different level, to be able to both process these emotions and have some of these tough conversations without losing the person that we care about. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Definitely want to read your comments on this because it does work. And I'd love to hear what you think about this, because ghosting is such a painful thing to endure, and it's so painful to go through. It would be so much better to stop that from happening and having these deep discussions. Don't forget to live your true life.